Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar, AI-Powered Analytics, Accelerating Outcomes with Institutional Intelligence. My name is Debbie Phelps, and I'm the Director of Higher Education Growth at Datatelligent, and I'll be serving as your host for today's event. Joining me is Larry Blackburn, the CEO of Datatelligent, and we'd also like to thank Chris Atterbury, who's handling all the technical details for us today. So our presentation today is going to be made up of four distinct segments. First, the opportunity in front of higher ed. Second, AI-powered analytics. And what does that mean? Three, use cases by institutional outcome. And during this portion, you'll be able to see real examples of AI working with BI. And then finally, how Datatelligent brings this all to life. So before I turn it over to Larry, I want to give you today's big idea so that you can think over it. The fusion of AI and BI creates decision intelligence, and decision intelligence accelerates outcomes through better decisions. And now over to you, Larry.
Thank you, Debbie. So, hello, everyone. And what I want to share in this section is what we're seeing as the opportunity as the technology with AI has advanced. We're seeing that there's even more opportunity to use to make better decisions. So, I want to share that with you in this section. So, I want to start with, and I'm sure all of us are familiar with the current landscape, the current state that we're all facing. And these are not necessarily new, but I think there's just more pressure now to address these needs. So if you look at the situation of declining enrollment, the need for financial sustainability, student retention success, and operational efficiency as needs. And then on the right side, we've got some additional pressures of faster decision making. Perhaps you're being asked to look at adopting AI responsibly. And then there are the pressures of budget constraints and increased accountability, probably at the local, state, even federal level, right? So there's even more accountability that we're all trying to address. And so what we see is that these challenges isn't the lack of data, right? There's probably lots of data that we're all dealing with. The challenge really is how do we turn data into decisions? So as we talk to leaders, this is what we're hearing, right? That they have lots of questions, and while they may be asking for more reports, more data, what they're really looking for are answers to their questions. And often the current process to get those answers is the multi-step process you see on the right. And then there can be a delay, right? So what we want to look at is the opportunity to get those answers quicker. So as we talk with those leaders across institutions, right, the same challenge comes up, right? They have information, but they need clarity. They need it when they need it in a form that they can act on, right? So while we made lots of advancements in the last few years of providing that data, I think that we can still do more, especially in that direct access to information when they need it. So point number two is that it's not a failure of effort, right? Everybody's busy, everybody's trying to build capabilities to use data better. We've seen that across the market in the years that we've been in business, right? All of that has been growing, right? So the efforts there, it's more of a structural issue. It's really this concept of how do we close this access gap of when somebody has a question, how do I get access to the information I need, right? And so that is a opportunity we're looking at with AI-powered analytics. And then finally, the big opportunity that we do see, right, is this ability to access trusted information quickly, have confidence to act on it. And so it's really that speed of insight, right, is becoming a strategic necessity. So that's the big opportunity that we see. So what's the opportunity to address that, right? And so what we see is this concept of fusion of AI and BI creates decision intelligence. And decision intelligence is what accelerates outcomes through faster and better decisions, right? And so this concept of fusing AI and BI is good because we're taking BI and then adding AI, right? And so it does help to meet institutions where they are, right? You may be mature and you may have a great foundation for your analytics, and we can add that if you still think, right? You have an opportunity to add AI and BI together. So it's not AI alone, it's not BI alone. We see it as a fusion of those two coming together to create the information that people need. And then today we're really going to talk about outcomes first because we think that's the key to get the value out of this technology, right? It's really an enabler, better decisions, and then better outcomes. So what we call this capability, we call it AI-powered analytics. And what does that mean? So as I was saying earlier, it's really this fusion of AI and BI. So if you think about BI, that has been the trusted foundation for our analytics, right? So in building BI capabilities, we have trusted reporting. We have those metrics that are shared across the institution and that consistency, right? The navigation, though, is several steps, right, where you have to navigate to get to the answer you need. So now we add this AI layer, which is the exploration layer, a better way to explore your information through natural language. And then you get explanations, and then you get some narrative, and it's more of a conversation, right? So those two together, we call AI-powered analytics, and that's what enables decision intelligence. And that's where leaders can begin with a question and start with that, and then explore your questions and go deeper, right, than perhaps you could do with BI and continue that conversation. And you get faster answers because you have better context. And we think that's what accelerates outcomes. The other thing we think AI powered analytics is go further than you have been able to do with BI, right? So BI has been more about what happened, and you can see that in the trends, in the data, in the metrics, right? And it's really, as we think about it, the beginning of the analysis, right, of what happened. And then AI adds some more insights into why did it happen? You're able to explore the cause of the results with AI. And then the real value of AI-powered analytics is to enable the decisions, the actions. What should we do next, right? And AI is able to give you that, right? So it's not just about producing reports faster. It's really about accelerating outcomes. And this can be applied no matter where you are on your maturity curve. So I'm going to turn it back to Debbie, who's going to walk through examples of where decision intelligence can be applied.
Thanks, Larry. Okay, so as we begin going through the use cases that we have, we're going to give you some insights into the power of the Streamlit app, which is available in the Snowflake cloud. And Larry will get to all of the technical details later, but we wanted to start out by reinforcing the idea that you need a foundation of data literacy and governance. And I'm sure everyone here is already aware of that. That AI will magnify biases in a data set. Without the context needed, you'll be facing the hallucinations that we've seen in other types of AI tools. And that data governance ensures that Personally identifiable information, PII, and other data privacy needs are met through role identification for users. And so this is why, when I turn it back over to Larry, you're going to learn more about why a secure environment is a must. So Larry, if you want to move on to our next slide. All right. So we're going to start out here with enrollment effectiveness. And what you see on the right-hand side of the screen is a screenshot from Streamlit, an app that is in the Snowflake cloud. And this screenshot is focusing on the application, on that funnel from inquiry to applicant to admitted, deposited, and even enrolled students. These numbers give you that funnel that helps you to understand where you're seeing conversions from stage to stage and where you might have a bottleneck. If you look a little closer, Larry referred to the ability to have a conversation with the artificial intelligence and actually come away with things that you can do. So you might notice that right under those broad numbers at the top, you see the AI insights, and you're told what you should watch. You are also given a bright spot, something that is possibly meeting or exceeding a goal that you've set in your analysis. And it also gives you actions. And so you notice that this one is advising you to prioritize your outreach between applicants and admitted. It's noticed that that is where you might have some blockage that is slowing down your admissions funnel. Then you can see that you also have some other facts, your overall yield, how many students are admitted, how many students are enrolled. And then if you want, you can also include items that might be part of your strategic plan or something maybe significant that you're tracking for credibility or some other type of accountability measures. And in this case, the example that we're giving is the first generation student yield goal. So let's take a look at those key outcomes and questions on this slide. So the first one points out that you can have an actual natural language conversation with the analytics. You can look at the funnel analysis and yield exploration. You're able to ask questions and get clear answers. That is part of the ability to democratize data. And also, it also enables you from not having to call another meeting because you have a dashboard and you need to sit around and create a conversation about numbers. And then our second question, why are first-time college student applications down? Well, with your data structured in a model that allows you to bring all of those sources together, information from your ERP, from your CRM, from your LMS, you will be able to diagnose from a variety of variables, including age of student, high school, geographic information, and plus, don't forget the Snowflake Cloud is able to host external data sets. And when you add those in to your internal sources, census information or local school district head counts can also help you determine if a specific population decline will continue in future years. All right, Larry. In this next slide, we're going to take a look at enrollment trends. And this one, the view is focused on enrolled students. Again, you can see that you're given some broad, important numbers. Your overall head count for the year and term, FTE, and credit hours. You'll notice that you'll see little signals highlighted throughout each one of these views. And underneath each of those numbers, you can see in green the percentage increase from the previous year. Again, you've got those AI insights, that bright spot that tells you more information about your Pell enrollment goal, and then the action that you can take to sustain enrollment through the registration deadline. Again, that natural language that gives you a starting point for action. This one also looks at retention, and I know for everyone right now, persistence and retention is a very important metric. And so you can see that we're looking at the current cohort, comparing to the prior cohort, and seeing that year-to-year change. Many of us have retention and persistence goals in our strategic plan. And if you do, this could also be embedded into this view. So you can see here, we're looking at a prioritization on Pell enrollment and also adult learner enrollment. And both of those are very high priority, especially for community colleges at this time. So how about those key outcomes and questions? So how can we grow enrollment in a sustainable way? So you can actually use geographic locations, including your service area, region, and state populations. You can evaluate your facilities to see what kind of capacity that you have. You can look at academic scheduling. Human resources, do you have enough staff and faculty to meet the needs? How quickly can you grow and still provide the support that students need to be successful? You can also capitalize on academic program viability or program review metrics and learn which programs seem to be strengthening and which may be weakening. And then again, let's talk about an important external data set. You can actually incorporate Bureau of Labor Statistics information, including job growth and wages, to determine which programs are emerging and growing. And all of these things will help to attract students to your campus and help you to increase enrollment and sustain it. So I don't know what your experience has been, but my career was spent at a community college. And so we often on the fall census day would talk about that fall head count. And hooray, our fall head count is up. But is that good? What does it mean? When you use AI and BI and you're able to power your analysis using multiple data sources, then you can answer that question in a meaningful way because it's more than just that aggregated number. Again, this question requires an understanding of tuition rates as they are related to variables such as the student's residency and their program of interest maybe. And depending on your state's methodology for revenue support, it can also mean an analysis of the types of courses that students are enrolled in, whether they're enrolled in career and technical courses versus general education courses, and then any other variables if the model is performance-based. And one thing, if you take a look down in the left-hand corner of our slide, you can see that who might benefit the most from this type of information. That would be your vice president of enrollment, enrollment leadership, and recruiting staff. Everyone can do better when we understand which students are attending our institution, who are the future students that might come, and what can we do to help sustain that growth to make our institution stable? All right, Larry, let's go on to student retention. So again, this is another view from the Streamlit app. And this is a portion of what we call our student risk solution. And so these are the big broad numbers again. And in the next slide, we're going to give you a look at a student detail screen. And so what this view is showing you is the analysis first buckets the students into 3 categories: high risk of dropout, medium risk, and low risk. And so the analysis behind the scenes involves variables that are already within your systems and are prioritized by your campus. And the focus of this solution is to remove obstacles that might impede student persistence and retention. None of the variables are ever intended to be viewed as an indicator of academic ability. These are roadblocks that students regularly face that can impede their ability to re-enroll for that next semester. And so this information might include some of your policy requirements, such as you have to have a 2.0 GPA to re-enroll, or you cannot have any financial holds for unpaid bills. You can use engagement information from your LMS. Has the student logged into their online courses during the first 1 to 3 days? What kind of other engagement metrics? Are they spending time doing discussion boards and participating within that classroom shell or not? You can identify your 100% online learners because we know that many of these students choose the online environment because they're juggling college coursework, family, and work. At my campus, we also identified students who lived more than 30 miles away from campus because we know that each mile between them and campus increases the risk that they might not be able to make it to class that day. Course rate success based on prior enrollments, and then highlighting special student populations like first-generation students who might benefit from a more intrusive advising model on your campus. So when you look a little closer at this view, you're going to notice that in the AI Insights, you're asked to watch a strategic goal that you have for Hispanic students. You have a bright spot, and then you have an action, which suggests that you might pair students who are higher at risk with students who are at less risk, because we all know that students often feel more comfortable talking about struggles with their peers. Again, we have an opportunity for you to get those strategic planning goals right there in front of you and keep them in front of everyone. And we have 2 more outcomes and questions. So our first question is, which student populations are experiencing the greatest retention challenges this semester? And so this solution allows for disaggregation. So you can determine common characteristics to create retention strategies that will scale up and create significant change. And what actions can I take for outreach? And you've already seen a couple of examples, but when you're able to drill down into the data, like we're going to show you on the next screen, you can actually address students at the spot where they are right now at this point in the semester. So Larry, let's move on to the next slide. So this is our student detail screen, and you can see here that we have a student that we've named Alex Brown up on your screen. And so you can see that Alex is at risk for dropout. He is at medium risk, and so let's intervene on his behalf so that he doesn't fall into that high risk category. You can quickly see that his term GPA is above the requirement for him to be able to re-enroll, but it's probably not as good as he had hoped. And so how can you help him? You can see that he has a 45% credit completion from the past. So it looks like maybe you should look back at the courses that he struggled with to help him progress with what he's taking right now. Notice that he has some active red flags that you can act on. And then to the right, looking at the risk factor analysis, this is machine learning embedded into the solution so you can see which variables place him at risk and which variables are helping him to be successful. You also have a short list here of recommended interventions that you can do right away. In fact, it tells you that you really should start today. So our key outcomes here are at-risk students engaging in academic support services, including tutoring labs, writing centers, and TRIO support services. Again, the more data sources that you can bring into the Snowflake cloud, the more robust information that you can get from it. And so if you're able to bring in apps, maybe your campus uses Academia or something else, where students use their ID before they go into the tutoring lab or the writing center, and also other information from your TRIO support services. Those are data points that you can use to determine if students are making good use of the resources that you've provided on your campus. And then which courses are impacting student progress to award completion. This is something that AI can help you do with a curriculum review, determining which courses are often bottlenecks for students. If there is not just a gateway course, but other courses where if a student cannot pass that one, then they cannot progress throughout their entire program. So Larry, we've got one more, I believe. So finally, we have a few more risk use cases that are not related directly to the student life cycle. So finance and operations, how can we efficiently manage deferred maintenance and technology upgrades? Well, information from the academic schedule, in combination with other room scheduling software or information in your ERP, can be incorporated to determine the level of foot traffic and related wear to buildings. Also, inventory functions in your ERP can help create equipment replacement schedules for things such as desks and chairs, along with providing you with information for a technology plan to replace hardware and software for computer labs and employee use. The second one is, are we allocating resources equitably to all campuses and locations? And here is an instance where we could combine headcount, scheduling, staffing, faculty to student ratios, along with financial information from your general ledger, capital outlay and or grant funding, to demonstrate to external constituents like your accrediting body that students at locations other than the main campus do receive the same support. And finally, how can the use of artificial intelligence improve efficiency in the IR and IE office? So we understand that there are some tasks that are possibly too intricate for you to be able to use now. And so we're familiar with the many ways that IR staff are using AI to create reports and to do other types of analysis for accreditation and other planning efforts. Other specific use cases, which came to us from AIR colleagues, include the exploration and implementation of new coding methods, along with refactoring of code when migrating from one platform to another, and an automated validation and anomaly identification to improve data quality. And so with that, Larry, I'm going to turn it over to you so that you can tell today's listeners how we are bringing this to life for campuses.
Great. Thanks, Debbie. So, as you've heard, we have a great opportunity to accelerate outcomes, the outcomes that Debbie just reviewed. And so, what I'm going to go through is how we at Datatelligent are enabling those outcomes. So, before I get into the details of our solution, a couple of foundational parts that I want to start with. First is, so we have selected Snowflake as our preferred data cloud platform, and we've evaluated several and have decided that the stack that you see on the screen is all included in a single stack in Snowflake. It's available at any time, anywhere that you want to use it. And so it makes it very easy to use. So that's why it's our preferred data cloud platform. We do work with others, but this is our preferred. So some of you may have heard of Snowflake and others, this may be new to you, but what you see in the stack is that we have the data security, and then we have AI infrastructure available, right? And then we have both types of AI. Um, we have both types of AI available, the generative AI and the machine learning AI. And then the final layer at the top gives us the ability to deliver those insights all within the Snowflake stack. And so, again, it's a nice integrated stack that's available and available on demand. Uh, Snowflake works, all of those components work in Snowflake on demand. And so the costs incur when you use it, but it's always available. And because it's in the cloud, it does scale as your needs change. And as you can see on the right side, Snowflake includes those various data protections that we all want to have that secure, trusted data foundation that's important for us to have those reliable, secure insights. So all of that's available in Snowflake. The second part of our solution is the concept of context engineering. Um, and there's been a lot of talk about this because everybody wants to make sure when we use AI that it's reliable, right? And make sure that it's accurate, especially for analytics. We want AI to be accurate, and so context engineering gives us that uh, context that we need. So out of the box, the AI LLMs, right? They're trained on a lot of various contexts, right? So out of the box, they won't have the context for your specific institution. And if you look at those items on the right side, those are all the different uh, parts of the definitions that apply to your institution, right? Terminology, metric definitions, business rules that can vary from school to school. How do you think about time, right? We need to make sure that's clear. And then there may be things that you want to exclude when you're working with the insights. And then also the hierarchy within your institution, right? The definition of your colleges and programs. So all of that context is important for AI. And so context engineering is the practice of turning all of that organizational knowledge and definitions into a structured, reusable layer that AI can use for reliable responses. So one of the big questions we get is when we use AI, right? We want to make sure that there's not going to be hallucinations as we've encountered early on, especially in the use of AI. Adding this context engineering is probably the most important part of the work that we do to make AI reliable. So this is really where the work is happening as we implement this kind of insight. So this shows our end-to-end platform. And so everything that you see in the blue box in the middle is available in Snowflake, as I mentioned earlier, right? So kind of walking through the key components here. So we first bring all of the data from various sources, and just a few examples are shown here on this uh, image, but we know there's a lot of different sources. We want to connect to all those sources and then bring them into a unified data lake. So that's the first point of just bringing all of your various sources into one place and unifying all of those. And then we want to bring those into Snowflake, as we talked about earlier, which becomes your trusted data foundation, right? So we have that in a secure environment. This is your environment. This is something you own and you govern as well. And then the second key part of the platform is what we call our common data model for higher ed. So we have developed through our experience in working with various higher ed institutions a data model that gives us that consistent structure in standardizing what we call things, how we define things, how we integrate various parts of the data into a consistent data model. So that's key for then building the semantic views and that context layer for AI especially. And then we can deliver those insights through a couple of different methods. As I talked earlier, Snowflake does give us the ability to deliver those insights within Snowflake through a feature called Streamlit, which is that user interface that Debbie showed some examples of those screens that can be delivered within Snowflake through their Streamlit feature. And then it's all included in Snowflake. We can also work with your BI tools, such as Power BI or Tableau, and feed the data into those tools as well. But again, both methods start with the foundation of that data model and can feed both methods, right? And then all of that, of course, is what enables the outcomes that Debbie talked about earlier. So the last thing I want to show, because it wasn't in Debbie's screens, that we talked a lot about conversational AI. And so I want to show on this screen where that shows up in our Fusion platform. So if you see the red button at the top right, it says Ask Fusion. When you click on that, you get the chatbot that's embedded into this same screen where you're also looking at your BI metrics and you're able to ask conversational questions, right? So here's an example of asking a conversational question. It gives you a response, and then you're able to actually continue that conversation. Again, you don't have to leave the screen where you're also reviewing your BI metrics as well as the other AI insights. So that's how we have done that fusion of AI and BI, right, all within the same solution. So our approach is a three-step process to get started and to implement this kind of solution. So step one, we want to unify all of your data into one repository, right? And we talked about the data lake being that repository where we unify all of your data. Second step would be to create that semantic layer, especially for AI, needs that semantic context. And so that would be the second step. And that's really a lot of the work is to take all of those definitions, those business rules, that logic that we need and build it into that semantic layer. So that's the second major step. And then the third step is to then deliver those insights and talked about a couple of different methods, but we can quickly iterate and get to those insights. So think of it as a three-step process, and then we can work with you to um, customize it to your specific metrics and your definitions, right? So that is tailored to your environment. And so what we encourage is that you take the next step. There's a couple of different ways that you can get started, and you can schedule a demo to go further into the solution, a discovery call to talk about how you can approach this and what works for you, a roadmap that works for you. We are also offering workshops that delve a little bit deeper into what AI for analytics means and how that apply to your institution. And the biggest difference, right, is that AI for analytics is not the same as your general chatbot and AI, but it's very specific to analytics. So feel free to go to our website and you can take that next step. So here's our contact information. You can send us any questions, additional thoughts that you might have directly to us. So feel free to do that and continue the conversation. We look forward to that. We look forward to continuing this and let us know how this might help your institution. So thank you for your time today and have a great rest of your day.